rights and benefits for every race and creed. Cries of women, men, and children, we want everyone to heed. The truth will set us free. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Now, Sophia, you have freed us. Your truth has set us free. Our recovery is coming as our eyes receive new sight. We are moving out of bondage. We are bound for freedom bright. As we claim our fullest powers, we walk on into the light. The truth will set us free. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Now, Sophia, you have freed us. Your truth has set us free. Now our joy breaks forth in dawning of a free and glorious day, and our healing springs up quickly as our talents we display. Come and join our celebration. Come rejoice and gladly say, the truth has set us free. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Free at last, oh hallelujah. Now, Sophia, you have freed us. Your truth has set us free.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Arizona Faith Gathering of 2023. My name is Dee Person. I am the Assistant Director for the Arizona Coalition for Military Families. Unfortunately, our director, Thomas Winkle, could not be here today, and he sends his regards. But this is a very special program to our entire leadership team, our organization, and to the community. And we're so glad you can join us today, again, for our first event of 2023. Next slide, please. So kind of just understanding why we're here today and why we have a Be Connected Faith Network. So the event itself that you're participating today is called our Arizona Faith Gathering, and that happens quarterly. But it's a part of the bigger program that we offer called Be Connected Faith Network. And why do we have that? Why did we feel that there was a need for that in the state of Arizona? Well, you're going to meet some of my colleagues, and one of those is Mike Wald, who will join you here in a few moments. He and our director, Thomas Winkle, about a decade ago, realized that there was a need to help support this social determinant of health, which we'll talk about here in a second. And the reason we know that this is so important is that we see on our slide here that 4 of 10 civilians with mental health challenges seek counseling from their clergy, right? Their spiritual leaders, whatever that is within their faith denomination. We also know that 40% of our combat veterans have difficulty finding that meaning or purpose, that loss of touch with their spirituality, what we call those invisible wounds, right? Spiritual scars on our soul, and various phrases that have been used over the years, that sense of brokenness. And so we really felt it was important to create this program within our organization to help support our community members and our faith leaders. So we're going to talk about that today and kind of the other resources that are available to you and your community. Next slide. So you heard me mention the phrase social determinants of health. And our organization here at the Arizona Coalition for Military Families This is how we view holistically a person, right? From the basic needs, right? Food and shelter, to that spirituality concept that we're going to talk about today in our faith. And not everyone is ready to meet us at every one of those social determinants of health. They may think they're doing just fine. And our goal is to really kind of peel back those layers and see how we can assist them to be their best selves. And oftentimes we know our military connected population have, struggled to ask for help and to get support. They always think there's someone else who needs it or deserves it more than themselves. So today's an opportunity for us to kind of pull back this cover, really, that we hold ourselves in this population at times and see all the great things that are out there and the connection we can have within our community, and that being within our faith and spiritual community. Next slide. So again, we really see this as an opportunity today with our faith gathering and with our Be Connected Faith Network to really bring that trust that's already established in our faith communities with our clergy, with our chaplains, and knowing that those veterans and their military connected family members are 5 times more likely to approach their faith leader, right? If it's a mental health issue, they'd rather talk to their faith or spiritual leader than a provider in the community. And that's fine, because it really begins with the connection and being able to see the resources that are available and building that trust that's already established in our faith communities. We know ultimately that if we can do this, we are going to help reduce veteran suicide. And so I ask you to join us in this mission here and enjoy this presentation today as we understand that spiritual connection, those faith communities really help provide hope, reduce that isolation, and build the healthy behaviors. Next slide. So this is the agenda we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about the Be Connected Faith Network, and you're going to hear an update from my colleague Lee here. We have some great guests and panelists today. Those who are going to be part of our guest ministry today are our chaplains, Chaplain Campbell and Chaplain Thurston. On our panel today, we have Dr. Soloza, Reverend Sexton Wood, Chaplain Larson, and again, a wonderful guest to have author Howard here with us. We're going to break out into some breakout sessions, and that'll give us some more intimate time as smaller groups to talk and share your thoughts. Again, participation is optional, but we encourage you, if you feel comfortable, turn on your video, participate in the conversation. And then we'll come back together from those breakout sessions just to hear kind of some of the thoughts, recap, and share some resources that are available. Again, not just for those in the faith community. Some are going to be faith-based, but just resources in general that will help our community break away from that isolation, build those trusted relationships. Next slide. And now it's my privilege to introduce you to our program coordinator for the Faith Network, Miss Lee Rodriguez. Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dee. And greetings and salutations, everyone. I am so happy that you could all join us today. So just to start out, our next faith gathering will be combined with the Be Connected Statewide Symposium on April 19th and 20th. We will be covering 2 important topics during the symposium, and registration is now open. That information will be provided in the chat, so please join us for the symposium. We also received wonderful updates from partners and community organizations who are doing great things to support the veteran community. We had 2 nursing homes in the area that shared pictures with us to display walls that they'd set up to honor veterans residents, their veteran residents this past year. And a special shout out to the Episcopal Diocese of Arizona, which started a diocesan veteran and military ministry that has really begun to take off. They set up a display booth at their last statewide conference, and now congregations all over the state are looking to start their own veteran and military ministries. There was a Veterans Day concert that they held at one of the parishes where I hear they even sang songs dedicated to each branch of service. So kudos to them for that. In addition, our partners from the CASA Veterans Ministry host a variety of veteran supportive workshops and retreats to help veterans and first responders heal from their service-related trauma. We'll have some more information about the next retreats that are going to be coming up. And lastly, I'd like to recognize the military veteran support, the Veterans Ministry at Our Lady of Joy Catholic Church in Carefree, Arizona, for their veteran supportive efforts throughout the year. In January, They partnered with the Knights of Columbus to sponsor a fundraiser dinner for organizations that support veterans. So that's definitely a great way to start out the new year. The Be Connected Faith Network is working to develop a training program to support these and other veteran supportive missions. So please reach out to us to learn more about that. And so we only had a few highlights today in the interest of time, but you'll want to be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter, BCFN Highlights, to stay up to date on all that we and our partners are doing. If you have anything you'd like to share, email us at bccc@arizonacoalition.org. That's bccc@arizonacoalition.org. Your story could be selected to feature in the highlights. Feel free to put any questions and comments that you have during today's event in the chats, and we will try to get to you. And if there's anything that you want us to follow up with, feel free to put your email in the chat as well, and we will definitely do that. And with that, I will turn it over to our host, the co-chair and a founding member of the Be Connected Faith Network, Mr. Mike Wold. Next slide.
Hi, folks. First of all, I want to thank you for attending today's faith gathering. As Leah said, I'm the co-leader of the Faith Network along with Thomas Winkle, the director. Basically, what we're trying to do is equip you, all the people that are on this call, and also, of course, anybody in Arizona who's in a faith community that wants to help veterans. We want to give them training and different things like that. We reach out to faith communities and members directly oftentimes, meet with them, help them, coach them, try to enhance their services. In addition, we send out information. So as Elise said, that's anybody who would like to be in the, get our newsletter and get our information and sign up to be in the Faith Network. I'm really excited about the program today. I'm happy to be introducing you to the Chaplaincy for the Homeless. Some of you may know what that is, some may not, but we're going to be having two wonderful people talking about that today. I'm also excited to be able to moderate a panel of people who will provide us with many insights on how to engage our veterans in an inclusive manner. Lee and I had conversations and realized that it could be that by the very language we use, we turn off veterans that are coming from different faith traditions. And even the word faith, we'll be talking about that. Does the word faith, is that word used, is that non-inclusive just by the fact that we use those words? So we're going to be hearing from some really good people. I'll be introducing them in a minute here. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, it gives me a great joy to introduce Chaplain Darwin Campbell and John Thurston. They're from the Chaplaincy for the Homeless. So go ahead, you're on, John and Darwin.
Okay, well, let me just
let me say a couple words though about these folks. Sorry about that. First of all, these are impressive resumes. I'm not going to spend a whole time. I'm going to give you some key points. First of all, Chaplain Darwin, he's executive chaplain for the Chaplaincy for the Homeless. He's a proud native of Lincoln, Illinois. I happen to have been born on Lincoln's birthday, or Lincoln was born on mine, so I have that's February 12th. After high school, Darwin attended Southwestern Christian College and Freed-Hardeman University, majoring in biblical studies and ministry. Darwin took his call to ministry and joined the U.S. Navy in 1981, where he served as a ship chaplain providing worship services. I'm a Navy guy too, so it's good to have a Swabie on here. A small business owner, Darwin operates Green Technology Specialist. Currently, he creates a daily morning devotional called The Morning Touch on YouTube. Darwin serves God with his wife, Yolanda, and who are also proud parents of 2 children. John Thurston is a longtime friend of mine, born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He has the same accent I do, that Norwegian Minnesota twang. He's raised in many states because his dad was a military officer. John graduated from Ohio University with a BS in Commerce. After serving 3 years in the Army, he then spent 42 years with Caterpillar manufacturing and management positions, later human resources, labor relations management. He also remained active in the U.S. Army Reserve for 29 years, retiring in 2005. He and his wife, Mary Kay, moved to Carefree, Arizona in 2015, where he joined the board of directors of the Homeless ID Project. He was vice president of the board from 2016 until January 2018. He has been a deacon and elder of the Presbyterian Church, former director of the Department of Family Counseling and Service in Illinois, the vice president of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and he's a proud member of the Society for the Prevention of Barbershop Singing. And I, of course, I'm not a barbershop, but a singer, so I really appreciate that. So, John and Darwin, there's no further delay.
Well, let me speak first because I'll speak quick. I'm happy to be with all you folks. We've got a great ride going since 1988 in the creation of the chaplaincy, and it has changed now. We've gone through a lot of different changes, but we now, with Executive Director Darwin Campbell, Executive Chaplain, we've taken a new tack that has grown our business just fantastically. And so I'm going to turn it over to Darwin to tell you folks all that we do and all that we can do. So Darwin, you got it.
All righty. I would say good morning, everyone, and thanks for being a part of this. It's wonderful when brethren can dwell together in unity. We're excited about that. Just a little bit about the chaplaincy. Since 1988, it's started Reverend Gerald Rosenberry, who his vision was amazing, and being able to try to understand homelessness, going out on the street and living physically with the homeless for a time in Tucson and Phoenix, and learned a lot that has turned from the paper to actual the virtual dream into reality. And what we've tried to do is to advance the vision of Gerald Roseberry and those early pioneers of the chaplaincy who wanted to make a difference in the lives of people on the streets. And of course, we know a large percentage of those on the streets are part of the veteran population. So we see a cross section from veterans to elderly to just regular blue collar people that are homeless, even those being evicted now. But it's a good, solid mixed cross section of the umbrella of society and population that we live in here in America. But our number one goal in the chaplaincy is to basically bring hope and help and encouragement to all homeless. And we do that by not only bringing them the love of Jesus Christ or showing them the love of Jesus Christ, but we try to enlighten their way and encourage and enlighten their path so that they can see that hope is a reality. Hope is not a pipe dream. It's not something distant. We want them to return to the idea that they are inclusive, that God loves them, that they're part of society. And one of the ways that we've done that, just to make a long story short, is to take our ministry from the office to the streets. There is some type of mode in our society where people think, okay, I've got a placard, I got a sign, I got real estate, they can come see me. Well, I am kind of the opposite of that. I don't believe in sitting behind a desk. I don't believe in being a Maytag repairman waiting for the phone to call, phone to ring. We like to encourage our chaplains to be hands-on, active, and in the streets. And that's where we've taken this ministry from its conception. We've taken it to where Pastor Roseberry started it, in the streets. He learned about homelessness in the streets, and we have brought that back to the streets, brought this ministry back to the streets in a vibrant kind of way, using not only Bible teaching and encouragement, but we also use some of the same things that Jesus used in showing people that we love them, that we care about them, and that we want to be in front of them. We want to walk a mile in their shoes and have them speak to us, and we listen to them, and we try to do our best to encourage them. So it's not about talking down or looking down, but it's looking eye to eye and walking with them through their situation, whether it's reunification, whether it's a resource center or independent living or treatment center, or just finding a place to live. Getting out in the streets has made all the difference, and it's accelerated our ministry and our ability to do the things we've done. Like, for example, just last year alone, we were able to be directly involved in getting 320 people off the streets and into some form of treatment, independent living, reunification, family reunification, or even job independence, as well as we were able to make over 6,000 contacts a month. And that's providing such things as survival items, hygiene kits, clothing, even a little bit of chop here and there to help make the next meal. But, it's about being actively involved in the lives of the people that we're trying to serve, not waiting for them to come to us, but we go to them where they are, whether at St. Vinny's, whether they're on Van Buren, whether they're on Main in Tempe or Mesa. We go to where they are because we want to make that difference in their lives. And we want them to know that with the chaplaincy, with our number one goal being to offer hope and encouragement, we want them to know that there's a way. We want to be that light. We want to be that salt. And that's the goal of every chaplain. We have 9 chaplains in the field currently, but the demands are increasing. We've expanded beyond that to rehab centers by request with the elderly. I mean, it's just phenomenal, the work that is the call, as it were. But we want to answer that call. We pray every day that we're able to answer that call. We'll leave no stone unturned and no one unserved. We do whatever we can, going out in the middle of the night if we have to, or getting up early in the morning, walking people through their challenge, and especially when it involves veterans. I mean, veterans, I'm a veteran. I fully understand what's happening and in the lives of some of these veterans, and I identify with it because as a veteran, I too have been not treated so well by the Veterans Administration, and I've had to walk through some things, and I can tell you, it's my faith that's made the difference. And I share that with them, the disappointments and the challenges of dealing with post-service, or even in the face of having served and now being later disappointed by a system that seems to neglect. And so we identify with that. And when we share that with a veteran, they get on the same plane and they understand that we understand. And we walk with them through it and are able to build trust and faith and hope for their tomorrow. Because like I said, being on the edge of suicide as a result of a lot of the disappointments and so on and so forth, it's frustrating. But helping them to understand that we navigated it and that there's a way to navigate it and a way to get through it. And that's what we do, not only with veterans, but with every homeless individual. So that's what we do. The last thing I'd like to mention is we hold 7 fairs and festivals for the homeless to get them involved with life. We want them to know that they are a part of us. We bring back the human dignity, bring back the inclusion, bring back the equality. So that's what we do at the Chaplaincy for the Homeless. We love to have anyone volunteer to be a part of it. We're in need of chaplains and support. So thank you for the time, and we appreciate the opportunity.
And Mike, can you hear me? Mike,
We
Thank
can
you,
hear you, Mr.
Chaplain.
Thurston.
okay.
Thank you,
I
Chaplain
like to,
Darwin and John.
I'd like to tag something on, Mike, if I could.
Got about 30 seconds, sir.
Go ahead.
That's fine. I just wanted to mention the fact that we are very close partners to St. Vincent de Paul. And so at most of their dining facilities, we conduct chapel services every Sunday and Bible studies during the week. And we're developing a point where we'll reach every one of their dining facilities. So that's our mission, one of our missions right now that I'm pretty proud of, because we've been with them for quite some time. So thank you all for listening to that. And we're glad to be a part of this program.
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the things I want to emphasize again is, as John said, they're looking for more chaplains. It's a wonderful work, as you can see from Chaplain Darwin's talk. And up towards the top of the chat, if you move up towards the beginning of the chat, there's a chat. There's information on who to contact in order to volunteer. So thank you so much. Next slide, please. Okay, it's my pleasure now to introduce our panelists. They're chosen because they come from a wide variety of, what would I say, perspectives on faith, on inclusion, and that sort of a thing. So I want to go through quickly their resumes, or kind of a truncated version of that. First of all, Dr. Albert Soloza, he's the executive director of the Arizona Interfaith Movement. This organization brings together people from a wide range of spiritual traditions, and the connecting point for that is espousing the golden rule. And it's, of course, in every faith tradition, there's a golden rule statement, and at any rate, so we're happy to have him here. He's a faculty on the Faculty of Political Science and World Religions, Phoenix College. He's taught there for many years. He previously taught at Arizona State University and Thunderbird School of Global Management. He's a lifetime member of the United Nations Association and served as president of the Asian Pacific Community of Action. And I also want to introduce Reverend Katie Sexton Wood. She's executive director at Arizona Faith Network. This is another organization. It brings together faith communities and their members from a diverse set of spiritual traditions. They unite in various projects to serve the needs of the community in many, many ways. Everything from housing to other areas, water. They're working on a water project this summer. She comes to the Arizona Faith Network with years of nonprofit experience, specialized in ministry, leadership, interfaith work, and community organizing. She has a proven track record of building impactful communities who work to transform our world. Before being hired as the executive director, Pastor Katie served as the general pastor at Coolwater Christian Church in Scottsdale. She's just done a lot of interesting things. She's got field experience in the College of Nursing and health professions also. She has a master's in nonprofit management, master's in divinity, MA in Christian studies from Grand Canyon. She's ordained with the Disciples of Christ Church. And both two that I've mentioned and introduced find themselves connecting with people of all different kinds of faith traditions. Joel Larson is at the Behavioral Health System Manager of Chaplain Services, the chaplain himself, and oversees the services for patients, consult with patients, and leads spiritual groups with adults and adolescents. Master's degree, divinity from Golden State Baptist Theological Seminary, Masters of Art in Human Services, counseling from Liberty University. Served in the Arizona National Guard as chaplain assistant, conducting sessions and teaching suicide prevention and stress-related techniques. He worked as a mobile crisis therapist in Phoenix and volunteered as a pastor of a local church. I want to also introduce Chief Vince Howard. He's a Master Chief, retired. He's an Air Force veteran, served in the Air Force as a first sergeant from 1995 to 2010, then a command Master Sergeant for the 355th Flight Wing at Davis Malta, 2010 to 2012. Holds a Master's in Science and Leadership and Coaching from Bellevue University. Is recognized as one of the 25 most influential African Americans in Southern Arizona. He has conducted numerous seminars for DoD. He is also includes one of the Gettysburg Leadership Experience, things like that. He's a recognized author, a book called The Long Way Home. It's rated 5 stars on Amazon. It's been in the book of the month. It's got many awards for that. So I want to thank these esteemed panelists for being here. And I'm going to now start by asking the questions. And the first question is, what is your definition of faith? I think what I'll do is I'll just start with Albert. I'll ask you each a question and then ask you all to come in with your comments on it. So Albert, what is your definition of faith? Am I the only one that's not hearing anything?
No, I
Oh,
hear you, Mr. Wald. Hold on. There's I hear Dr. Solosa.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. I must have done something wrong here. Okay, thank you.
Dr.
Should I
Solosa.
start?
Yes, yes. What's
Well,
your definition of faith?
Okay. Well, there are so many definitions and ways of understanding faith, but one thing that I came with this morning are two things. One is from Dr. Martin Luther King. There is one quote from him which says, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." And it's just a single step. And so life is like one step at a time. And having faith is taking that first step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And so this is really very critical because sometimes we see the entire world before us and our burdens are so heavy. The challenges that are before us are so tremendous, but it is so powerful just to think, just do the single step and then the single step. Sometimes we have this idea in our head that we can change everything and then we can control everything. The reality of faith is that I am not in control, or I am not in full control, but I am in full control of my next step and then my next step. And so going back to MLK, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole road before you. And that is that sense of trust, and that is that sense of confidence.
Well,
And then let me deal with the second quote from the Tao Te Ching. A journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. So faith is taking that step, one step at a time, not the entire mountain, not the entire hill, but that single step, having that confidence, allaying or addressing fear, and moving as the world moves on. So I would like to start with that and would love to hear the others.
well, thank you, Albert. Thank you for the wisdom and insights. Who else would like to comment on that?
I can jump in. Good to
Okay.
see you, Dr. Solosa. We've done a lot of events together and continue to. And hello, everyone. I want to start with saying thank you for your service, everyone who's on this call. I am a wife of a Navy vet and a daughter of an Air Force veteran. And so have lived through a lot of what the families of those who have served have, as well as always get those experiences with the VA and veterans too. So from my heart to yours, thank you for all you have done and continue to do that are still serving. The concept of faith, they gave us 1 minute to respond to this, so I'm going to try to be quick, is very complicated, right? I took out one of my doctorate books, like there's a whole book on these things, and there's books and books and books. And so it means different things to different religions too. So I'm just going to context that as well. But coming from the Christian tradition, I go back to that Greek word, which it translates to, I'm going to mispronounce this, but pistis is the word in Greek. And what that comes down to is trust and confidence, and like this firm foundation in what is happening there. And so the word faith flows out into our relationships, especially our relationship with God, and our relationship with one another. So it is a multi-level complication, as Dr. Sliss was talking about. It's like taking that next step. For me, that word trust is what it breaks down to. We see it in Hebrews 11:1 is where it's most defined. Now, faith is the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance of what we do not see. So what MLK was talking about a little bit in his definition, that scriptural basis there. But trust for me is that first foundation. And I'm up on time, so I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Katie. Who else would like to talk about that? Anybody could be Joel or Vince. Any comments to add to that?
I'll just say that I love what Dr. Slose and Reverend Sexton Wood said. They took the words right out of my brain as pertains to what you have confidence in, what gives you power, what drives your values, what drives your purpose, and what lights you inside when life or circumstances have seemingly permanently turned the light off. And faith is what helps you just keep trying to find that switch to turn the light back on. But I'd also note that even in my own personal life and in some of the people that I talk to, that the lack of faith is a faith in and of itself, because sometimes we have faith that it's going to be bad. Sometimes that we are bound to determine that it's going to be negative, it's not going to work, that we're not good enough, and we have absolute faith in that. So faith is where we put our focus and our emphasis to. And a lot of times what we're trying to do, me, myself, even now, is make sure that my faith is in the right area for what I need to do and who I need to support, whether it's my family or myself or my job, et cetera. But that's what happens when our faith fails us. We do have faith, but we have faith that it's not going to work out. So it's a really complex term that we have to continuously develop, or it withers.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Joe, any comments from you?
Yeah, two things that I thought of for me, and this kind of goes to the negative, unfortunately, but oftentimes when I talk to people, faith equals religion. And so I think we have to acknowledge that fact in our discussions. But then I was thinking about what is faith to me. And ultimately for me, faith is a call to action. If I'm not living, if I'm not doing, then I'm not being faithful.
I think you're muted.
Oh no, I muted myself. I was done.
Excuse me, there we go. Any rate, thank you for your insights on that. The next question is one Lee and I had quite a bit of discussion about, and the question is this: are the words faith and inclusivity mutually exclusive? In other words, when I'm approaching a veteran and using the word faith, what about people who have different traditions, that sort of a thing? So I'm going to give Katie this tough question first. Okay, Katie.
Why, thank you. I think faith, especially as how we've talked about it so far, it's not stagnant, right? It's about how we're living out our understanding. Like Joel and Vincent, I'm about to ordain both of you, so I'm going to call you Pastor Joel and Pastor Vincent there, to live it out. And so I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but it depends upon the person. I'm very much like a contextual theologian and ethicist, like of how you are living out your faith tradition. So if you are approaching someone and you believe there is only one way that that person can live and one way that person can be saved, then what does that mean for inclusivity there? So we have to really dive in to our own personal spiritual and faith traditions to further understand that. Now I talked to Rabbi Bonnie Scharfman, who is my board vice president, and she's like, you know, faith traditions don't really, faith doesn't really fit Judaism, right? And faith doesn't really fit our indigenous communities organizer. It doesn't really fit because it's not a religion, right? In the same way, it's a culture, it's a way of being, it's a way that their entire life is wrapped up. And so that then makes faith take on another definition. And so when we look and we put faith in, we put God in a box, right? Or faith in a box, then it's not inclusive. So it is up to each person and the lens you bring and where you're willing to meet someone there. So I also think there's a deep connection with faith to hope as I was listening to our other speakers. And I think that's critical to our veterans as well, that faith lived out in action means there is still hope. And I'm going to pass the mic now.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Katie. This insight that you brought up with faith being a term that doesn't have has a different doesn't have a meaning, or has a totally different meaning in Native American spirituality and in Jewish spirituality is a good point. And that was the thing Lee and I were concerned about as we approached this. In fact, we even thought about whether we call this a faith network. We've been going even deeper than that. Anybody like to comment about or comment on that question too? About inclusivity and faith, and comment on some of the
I would like to make this comment that you can have faith with or without a religious affiliation or a church.
Mhm.
It's very important to look at it in the context of life itself. Faith is a state of being, and there are several characteristics to this state of being that we are trying to cultivate. And that is the state of calm, the state of confidence, and the feeling that things will work out. Things will work out. Again, I go back to my earlier statement that we cannot tackle anything and everything and all at the same time and with such great haste. I think that it is very important to develop that sense of patience and that sense of waiting and to latch on to what Katie had said, the word hope, waiting hopefully, and doing it step by step. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. And so one thing about all these things that we are talking about, one of the most powerful ideas for me of the Protestant Revolution is the idea from Martin Luther, which says, priesthood of all the believers. We all minister to each other. We all tend to each other. Reverend Katie has taken care of me one time during our last program. I said, oh, now I'm very confident in my old age. Katie Sextonwood will give me guidance. And so she has really added that sense of confidence and for me, faith in humanity itself. So thank you, Katie.
Oh, thank you. Anybody would Vince or Joel have anything to add to that? I think there's a lot of good insight.
For sure. I think that the opposite is true. Faith and inclusivity aren't exclusive. I think they're synergistic. But as Reverend Katie said, there's more than one definition of it. So if you look at faith as, what you're confident in or what gives you power, that's true for all of us, even in the instance of a lack of confidence. So if we look at it that way, if we look at it that my faith has to be your faith and you have to define it the way I do, then yes, it could be mutually exclusive. But if we look at it as, sometimes it's just terms. If we look for ways that we can be inclusive, and in other words, I can look at all of us and see where we're different. I have to talk to you to see where we're the same. So as I talk to a person and I find that maybe what you believe and what you're confident in strengthens my faith, or maybe my strength is your confidence. So I'm not so hung up on words as to where that term takes us. So I think faith and inclusivity works together as opposed to repelling each other. But it can repel, just depends on the people involved and where they want to go with it.
Yeah. Thanks, Vince. It sounds like if we think about faith as religion, that can probably be a barrier. But I like that comment about it's a way of being, it's a way of living, and that broadens it. I should mention that if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. We may not get to all the questions. We would definitely follow up, back to you with answers. We get them out to the panelists. At any rate, Joel, anything to add?
I was just thinking that as providers, as carers, our job is to help create faith. I want my patients to have faith that I'll do everything I can to help them. And sometimes because of their experience in other locations, they struggle with that. And so I think that's an important piece of who we are as helpers at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll be putting the next question to Vince. And we talked a little bit about that, but I'm interested in your perspective on this, Vince. Next question is, how does the word faith apply to people who do not believe in God or gods?
And I got to tell this story in less than a minute. When I was a first sergeant, I had my airman and his family had a tragic loss. They lost their infant child, and they went to the chaplains and said, "We don't want you to do the ceremony. We don't want anybody to any references to God. We're atheists. We don't want any religious connotation to it. Instead, we want him." Pointing me to do this ceremony. So I am a Christian and I do believe in God, but at the same time, I have not the opportunity, but the obligation to take care of my airmen and their and his family during a time of great tragedy. So again, faith was there. There was faith in something, and what I try to do in that situation is be an example, and I show my faith. I don't have to necessarily say what it is, and in hopes that if I don't move you today, maybe I'm moving you a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, when you think back to a kindness or to something that I said or to something that I did that would, because my job in this world is not for everyone to believe in, have faith in what I have, but it's just to advance faith where they're at. So it's not an easy thing, particularly when you're strong with your faith and you want to share it with everyone, but you can share it without saying that word, without running them away, and which is the opposite of what we're trying to get to.
Thank you, Vince. Other comments from the panelists?
Mike, I think we all have faith in something, even without a belief in gods or other God or God in particular. But I mean, I have faith that when I walk into a store, my dollar is going to spend the same way it would as a credit card. So, I mean, we all have faith in something. Hopefully we can provide that faith in people. I like what Albert said, and that renewing faith in humanity. So.
Sure, that reminds me of at a traffic light or a traffic stop sign, I think about that a lot. I have faith that these other drivers are actually going to obey those rules. And most of the time it works, not all the time. Any other comments?
I think it becomes a barrier or exclusive when we think of faith only in terms of religion or organized church. I think that we have faith. Let's say I have faith in my parents, faith in life itself, and so those are the fundamental basis of faith. And religion or a church or a group is one way of enacting it, promoting it, but that is not the only vehicle by which we have faith. So, again, I would like to emphasize the fact that faith is not exclusive to organized religion or a church. There are, and then also, faith is not exclusive to belief in a God. There are religions that do not have gods, by the way, or God, but nevertheless, they have the certain sense of faith, and so that's really very important.
Oh, thank you for giving us that insight. Any other comments?
I have faith that my dogs won't stop barking right now because they're barking around me, so it remains muted. But I don't think we can, I echo Pastor Jose's comments in the chat. Faith and trust, right? When you have faith in someone, we're talking about outside of that religious lens, it's because you trust them. And so there is little to no separation there. And that brings back to the way that the New Testament authors were using the word, at least one of the ways, was a firm foundation of trust.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we're kind of getting to kind of a meat and potatoes question, and a practical question. And so I guess, Joel, it's your turn to be the first one on this. Here's the question. What are some things that you feel create barriers when engaging with people of different beliefs? And that's, as we're trying to get the points across for those of you from faith communities that are wrapping your arms around veterans in a sense, figuratively, trying to serve veterans, what are some things that we should avoid when we're approaching veterans? We don't, of course, we don't even know sometimes what the faith is that the veteran has, or if there's any quote faith, or we know they have beliefs. So Joe, what would you like to say to kick us off on that one?
So when I was thinking about this question, I thought of three things, and hopefully I'll be able to explain what I'm talking about. But the three things that I thought of were fear, ignorance, and opportunity. Fear in that we don't always understand other people, and that makes us nervous, and we're often afraid to go where we don't know, we're not comfortable. Ignorance in that we don't really know. I was looking at something the other day, and there were people having an argument over calling a Marine a soldier, and I was just laughing to myself, like, is that really important? To some people, yes. To other people, no. But the problem is for the person that's important for, that ignorance of the term is going to cause a barrier there. But then opportunity. I think it was they were talking about the homeless chaplaincy, and the fact that I don't do a whole lot of work in my office. I've got to get out of my office to be able to help people. And if we sequester ourselves in our offices or our churches or our homes or wherever, we're not going to get the opportunity to engage people.
Oh, very true. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Other comments on that question? Barriers.
I think that and a barrier that I've seen is unintentionally offending people, but not denying our own faith. So we don't want to offend anyone, but at the same time, we don't want to pretend we're something we're not or present ourselves as something we're not. So we shouldn't deny our own faith too. So it's tricky. It gets to be a tricky balance, but I think a lot of times we have to keep in mind what our own values are, what our own priorities are, and what our goals are. Is our goal just to feed a person for today, or is our goal to bring them through something longer? So we don't approach every situation the same way. So we just have to know that, okay, and you have to be able to read people and think, okay, I just offended you and I didn't intend to, but there's no other way that I could have taken this situation. So that could be a barrier if I can't surrender my faith on this one, but I still want you to eat. So it can be tricky.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I echo that, Vincent. You know, there's a level of having to live out your own beliefs and traditions, but you never have to be disrespectful. And so coming to the table with people of different faith beliefs and no faith beliefs and almost every day, which is my job, it's the belief that we're coming and setting that foundation from the get-go of we're coming together for the common good, for the common conversation, that we're really trying to approach one another with respect and with dignity. And if your goal in the conversation is to approach someone to demean them, to pronounce judgment on them, and to put them down, or to believe that you only have the right answer, it's not going to go well for either of you. And so that initial foundation has to be laid, or you're automatically throwing up barriers. I remember one time when I was in Kansas City, I passed by someone with a megaphone who's telling me I was going to hell because I didn't accept Jesus and I was already ordained. So I said, hey, can I buy you a beer or coffee? And we went and talked, and it was more to understand where that person was coming from to bring down that barrier, because just bypassing that judgment without knowing someone, without creating that relationship, there was that barrier up there. So it's about how you're approaching from the get-go and laying that foundation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Albert, any comments on that one?
Yes, I would like to add something.
Sometimes you do it unintentionally, and then you have to recognize that and be able to, see yourself and pull back. That's very wise words, ma'am.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about apologizing. Sometimes we're afraid because they just don't want to make any mistakes, right? And yet people are normally open to a humble apology. And I'm sorry that I offended you. That was my ignorance. Tell me more about where you're coming from. Yeah.
So,
Excuse me,
Mr.
Mike.
Wald,
I think
Chaplain
Dr.
Darwin
Watson wants to say something.
Oh,
yeah, I think it's Chaplain Darwin was trying to speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I've heard a lot of what you all have to say about. I go back to what Paul said about I become all things to all men that I might win some. And by practicing that, it means going into situations like we go into on the street. We go into a situation, we don't know whether we're going to win or whether we're going to lose. We don't know, but we go in with a clear vision and a clear view that I'm just going to be me. I'm going to try to go in as salt and as a difference maker. I'm not going in to judge anybody. I'm just going in to meet you. I'm going in to come to know you. And in reality, it's less about me and more about the other person. That when I go into those situations, I learn to listen, because when I listen, then I can begin to understand who they are before I even begin to present who I am. So, that's part of all things to all men that I might win some, is going in with the mindset to listen and to hear, and then you can develop the framework for which you can approach and speak and even win the trust of that person.
Oh, thank you, Darwin. I know that in your role, you are approaching people of all different kinds of traditions. And in order to serve them, you have to be able to be open to them. And I thank you for those comments. Albert, did you have anything to add?
Oh, I was just making a point that Dr. Michael was trying to say something to us, so.
Yes, I just wanted just to add, I was a chaplain assistant actually in the United States Marine Corps. And where I found a lot of our military personnel was coming from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different cultures. So a lot of people grew up different in different ways, but then, going through the military and now released from the military and now they become a veteran. I think we just have to be mindful that a lot of people just came from a lot of different cultures. So I think when we're approaching veterans, even in a faith base, we have to kind of be mindful of that as well in order to bring them all together.
Well, thank you for your insight there, Dr. Michael.
I would like to chime in with what Dr. Michael had said. I think that's really a very important concept, that not everybody is like me or not everybody is like us. And so part of that is being tolerant and open to the possibility that this is such a very diverse world. People grew up differently. People came from different backgrounds. People were born in different places. We had different parents. I think, but yeah, so the whole appreciation for that sense of difference is very important. But at the same time, we need to respect our common humanity and each person. So that's I think what's important.
Thank you, Albert. And what's coming to me is a stance of curiosity. And it's interesting when you do conflict management training. That's how they try to train you to do that, and it's hard. But it's respectful for people if you have that curiosity. Okay, well, I'm going to be, I guess we'll get back to you, Albert, on this next question, and then we'll probably have to be quick because I want to leave a little bit of time for you to bring up other things that we didn't discuss. But what are some good ways to demonstrate inclusiveness when engaging with those who do not share your beliefs? We've talked quite a bit about some of that, or your traditions. So why don't you start with that, Albert? Some of you have already talked about that. We'll spend a couple minutes talking about that. So what would you say about that, Albert?
I think we covered some of this already.
Yeah.
But number one is just that sense of curiosity combined with compassion. It is very important to extend that sense of compassion to somebody in the sense of being empathetic. One of the teachings of Buddhism is the notion of suffering. And so in some way or another, you can be a billionaire, you can be a millionaire, you can have a big house. But one thing that we share in common is we all have that sense of comfort or discomfort, or call it suffering and call it however you call it. Life is not perfect. And so in that sense, just for us to think that we can all help each other and we minister to each other in this world is very important. So curiosity, interest in another person, and then combined with compassion. I think that those are key. Compassion, curiosity.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. Any other comments on this issue of, how can we demonstrate inclusiveness that we haven't discussed? Anybody, any of the panelists like to bring up something here? Or did we?
Yeah, so I think we covered that one a little bit, but I just want to say that one way is to just to add on to and to echo what we've been saying is we haven't lived one another's lives. We don't know what it's like to have been through another's experience. And so just creating space, asking questions, being generally curious, like when you follow any of our faith traditions, all of the leaders did that. So we look at Jesus, you look at Muhammad, you look at any of our leaders, a lot of questions, right? Of just getting to know and be on the level with someone else, meeting them where they are.
Oh, very good. Well, we've got about 3 minutes, but I left this last question. It says, what are messages you'd like to get across that have been able to already regarding interactions with veterans that people that might have with their faith communities? Open it up for any panelist.
I think that I saw a question in the chat. It was really good about what happens when a person doesn't have trust. Is it difficult to have faith? And I would say that that's probably very, very, very difficult. And it's something that we have to recognize, I think, may not come in our first interaction or second interaction or a 10th interaction or our 20th or ever. So as I look at the different sorts of people that I've come into contact with, both in my 30 years, 2 months and 14 days of service and in the time since then, is that with some people, it's just easy to automatically bond. It's whatever I'm saying, whatever my demeanor is, whatever my personality is, they're like this, and we're like that. But for the others that aren't like me, and I'm not talking about necessarily don't look like me, but don't think like me, have different interests, different generations. I'm almost 60, and a lot of the people that I work with are not 60. So we have to build bridges as opposed to bonding, which we want to get to the same place, the same area, but we have to find that level at this. And at the same time, it's going to take both of us to build that bridge, but to the level that a person wants to build a bridge with me and I want to build a bridge with them, that's going to make that bridge stronger. And then over time, that will be trust. So there will be an increased trust. So it's no easy thing and no easy answer, but the thing that I would want people to know is most people aren't like you. Matter of fact, there's nobody like you. You are you. So the capability of building bridges is always there. If you're lucky enough to bond, then that's easy. But if you have to build bridges, it takes time and trust and listening to each other to do that.
Well, thank you, Vince. Thanks for noticing that question too and comment about it. Appreciate that. We got about a minute to go. So any of the panelists like to say anything that we did not cover? Any message you'd like to get across that we didn't ask the questions on even?
I think one very important message or word that we have not covered is the word trauma, and the trauma of conflict, violence, and war. Now, a person or persons coming out of conflict and war might come back intact physically, but there are so many psychological challenges with regards to violence and war and the lack of peace. And you're coming in back to the world where, you know, the rules of engagement are different. And so we need to be aware that it is only not physical trauma, but psychological trauma, and that the trauma of making an adjustment again into a different world. And that is why it's very important that we extend a listening ear to everybody and extend that sense of compassion. So it's trauma, and the trauma of war and violence is tremendous.
Thank you, Albert. It looks like we're out of time, but I really appreciate those of you who are dialoguing with one another in the chat. So that's really great to see that. And I'll ask Leslie to look through the chat and see if there are any questions that weren't answered to make sure they get answered. Next slide, please. We're going to have a brief, sometimes I go longer on these than this today. We've had so much, we're so excited about our panelists that we cut the chat down to, or I should say the breakout down to 15 minutes. Couple questions. One is, the main one is, what have you heard? What comments do you have? What will you remember about what was said? And then if we have time, what are some of the ways to engage others who do not share your values and belief systems or faith? So at any rate,